just keeping it to hockey, because that's what we are now. Just keeping it to hockey. So that's a really good point, and I can understand why people need some information, like look outside, because someone else's perspective that has been there, done that, it could be very helpful, right? So, I've always said, or I say quite frequently, if you have to pay for things and all that stuff, like don't get like, and my perspective might be different than what I'm going to talk about, but like a lot of times if you're paying for things and it's like, it's just a business that they try to tell you that, like, okay, so let's just say there's a combine of this, and it's not at the OHL, it's not college, or sometimes colleges have them too. They send out a mass letterhead to people to go to a combine or a selection camp. Like a lot of those camps that you have, like, and I would say most of those camps, or 99% of those camps, or something along those lines, that's what it is. It's like the assistant coaches or the company within the company. That's the way they get to earn money. If you throw enough mud on the wall, some of it's going to stick. So you fill those camps up, especially if you have a big name school or something like that. Okay, so that's one thing. So my perspective on that is like, okay, like you got to know what that is before you sign up and think that you're actually going to get scouted. On the other hand, and this is a very, very small other hand, if you do something really well at one of these combines, someone could see you. It's not likely necessarily going to happen because that's not what their real purpose is, but someone could say, oh, gee, that's a nice little player. We'll get the name, right? So I flipped because someone from the Gary Roberts thing follows us, right? So it was interconnected to one of our reels, or maybe someone from our place watches a lot of Gary Roberts stuff, and he's awesome. But that he was talking about, he was having people saying that they were going to the OHL combine or got invited to the OHL combine, which I don't know if that costs money or not. But yeah, but that's the OHL combine, which is like you're kind of invited as the top. I don't know, maybe 80, 60, something like that. So he was saying that a lot of the kids say, I'm not going to go to that. So his perspective was, and I would kind of at first, depending on how highly you were rated, but this is my perspective, okay, just early on. My initial thing is like, what are they going to get out of me doing the light, the testing, the light testing and pretend workouts? Like it's not real, but and you get a game or two and you get a t-shirt and all that stuff. Like, so what are you really going to get? If I'm going to be in the first round, I'm going to be in the first round. Who cares? Well, his perspective is, and it's just nice to get someone's perspective, is like, why wouldn't you go? Because especially if it's a freebie, but even if you had to pay a little bit, why wouldn't you go? Because if you're that good of a hockey player, wouldn't it be good to understand what testing under pressure would be and all those things? And I said, okay, so that's why sometimes it is good to get different perspectives, right? Because not everybody knows everything about everything. So anyways, and Gary Roberts is a pretty intelligent guy.
He is. Interesting that you said that. We got a kid that is going to we have a couple kids actually that are going to the combine, and one was asking me yesterday about the Wingate test, and it actually came to this exact point of just understanding performing under pressure. So he's like, so what should I do to prepare for the Wingate test? I was like, well, the Wingate test sucks. So the way to prepare for the Wingate test is to do the Wingate test. So if you have a couple weeks until you go, it's like, feel what the stress of doing the Wingate test feels like. So if you got a spin bike at home, because they do it on the spin wind bike thing, when they drop for anyone that doesn't know the Wingate test, they just basically, you're on a spin bike. Some of them is like the fan bike, depends on where you do it. And they just drop the resistance on you, and you have to sprint for 30 seconds as hard as you can. And they get a bunch of they test a bunch of metrics from that. So this kid was asking about that. I said, you need to feel what the stimulus of that feels like, because it can zonk you. Like if you've never done the Wingate test and you jump in and do 30 seconds on the Wingate test, that could like ruin your day. Like for the rest of the day, like you could be zonked from like having never felt that. And then your nervous system is just zapped. So I said, try it a couple of times at home over the next few weeks. Like do it 2 or 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks to feel what that feels like. Because I also asked him, do you know when in the day they're doing it? Like, is that the last thing you do, or is it the first thing you do? He's like, I think we do it right before we do the on-ice testing. I'm like, even more so. I was like, make sure you know what that feels like. So when you jump out there to do your on-ice testing, you're not zapped from something that you haven't felt before. So I said the best way to prepare for that test is to do the test. That's the best way. And they've done studies on this stuff like this too. Like there used to be, some people might remember on YouTube, there was a company called, what was the company called? They did these like brain training games, and they tried to say that it'll help you with things like reaction time and whatever. And it was a little bit of a trend for a while. And they used to run ads on YouTube. I'm blanking on the name of the company, but anyways, they did studies on these games, and it basically showed that it doesn't actually help you in general tasks. It makes you better at that task, right? And so that's very true with a lot of things. Like, and that's why, if you work out, if you're a power lifter, for example, and you're always doing squat, deadlifts, and bench press, are you ever going to be sore from doing squats, deadlifts, and bench press? Probably not over time. As soon as maybe you go to an incline bench press, or maybe you go to more of a squat instead of a hinge, or whatever, however you want to slice it, you change the stimulus, then all of a sudden you're super sore, And so understanding that exact point we were talking about, or Gary Roberts or whoever it was from their organization was talking about it, you want to feel what it feels like to have to do the thing, and that goes to, you've mentioned this even before on maybe a little bit of a different tangent, like being, or if you're going into something new, eliminating as many of the unknowns as you can, And so we had, for example, a bunch of Shadow Day kids here with the 2011 age group that are looking at coming here next year, and they've never been here before. And of course, they're going to come in. They're skating with the 2010 team. It's older kids. It's a new place. They haven't been around. So in the morning, we walk them around. Say, like, you're going to be here first, then you're going to go here, then you're going to go to the gym, and then you're going to walk back. And it just eliminates a little bit of that, I haven't seen this yet. So I do it for that reason, just so they know a little bit of what to expect. They know what it's going to feel like to walk down the hallway and get around to the gym and see what it looks like and where they're going to be. And they can start to process that over the first hour when they're on the ice a little bit, And so it's those are really good points. It's really important. Like you go into some of these situations and understanding that piece of it, I think is something that's super, super helpful. So interesting point that kind of came up on too.
Yeah. And is it just a side note on that? Isn't it amazing that you could do something for 30 seconds that will totally wipe you out, make you puke? A lot of people puke and just knock you out. And like you said, for some people, it could ruin their whole day. 30 seconds of hard work, 30 seconds of work. So that's why when you're training, it's another side of things. That's why when you're training for hockey, you have to train all your different energy systems because you use them all.